This is his line. And you go back another couple generations and it comes back to a grandfather. So this is a story about a cousin, okay, Townsend. Platt, we're going to learn more about Platt Townsend, who's right here. He was a physician to George Washington during the war. The Townsends were very influential during the Revolutionary War. But this one, how Peter Townsend saved the nation. Do you think one of your relatives saved America? One of the big problems during the war was that, I should have a big map. The Hudson River is the largest, most powerful river in the United States. It's more powerful than the Mississippi.
Broad.
It's broad and has a huge flow. You can actually see videos of it flowing into the ocean, and then when the tides come, it's so big that the waters, it actually changes the flow of the river, and the river flows upstream when the tide comes in. It's fascinating river. So the British were trying to have connections to, they had Canada, they had New York basically, and they wanted to connect. And then if they could cut off New England from New York, that would split the Revolutionary Army, and it really would have been the end of the war. So it's very important that they not be able to get up the Hudson River. So they tried, this was the second try to do this. The first try, they tried to build an iron chain that they strung across the river, and so that it would block the ships. But they got out, and the British got out, and they basically destroyed the troops on each side. So that one didn't work. But then in 1788, February 2nd, Hugh Hughes brought Peter Townsend, who owned the Sterling Iron Works, a contract to manufacture a massive chain to go across the river. Now the first one was smaller and it broke. This one, they manufactured 2.5-inch thick iron plates and then cut them into 2.5-inch squares and molded them around into chain loops that varied from 19 inches to 36 inches long, each weighing well over 100 pounds. So here's a picture of Peter Townsend's house that stood, that's a terrible picture, but it stood until 1990. And here's where they decided that they'd also move the chain. Instead of down here where they could come full blast, they decided to put the chain across right here, where they had to slow down to make this turn, okay? And here's a picture of one of those chain loops. And they had to also make swivels to attach every once in a while so that the chain could rotate so it wouldn't get all knotted up. This thing was massive and weighed thousands and thousands of pounds. So how do you get something like that to float? So your relative built this chain, okay? They put it across on logs. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? And they strung it across the river. And here's another pic. This is taken from that. But this is some of the remainders of the chain. And it worked. It stopped the British from getting up to Canada, but it also worked in another direction. Does anyone know who this man is? Jim?
No.
John? This is a very famous man named Benedict Arnold. Has anyone heard of him? Yeah. He was a traitor. He was communicating with the British. It was his communication to the British about how to destroy the chain that got him caught. So if there hadn't been a chain, they might not have even caught Benedict Arnold. So, here's another picture that shows the fort at West Point and where the chain went across. And here's another closer picture. So, your ancestor built this chain. It was very hard work, and it made all the difference in the Revolutionary War.
That's
Not just
cool.
from catching Benedict Arnold, but it stopped the British from splitting up the army. And I'll write a more detailed story sometime. But did you like that story?
Yeah, that's really cool.